Okay, I think this works. Hi, everybody. Okay, so I'd like to start off with a little story. And like any good story, it starts with the immortal words, once upon a time. Once upon a time, there was a man who came across a very special goose. For every day when he visited its nest, the goose had laid a beautiful, glittering golden egg. And the man sold the eggs, and soon he began to get very rich. But it wasn't long before he grew impatient with the goose, because it only laid one egg every day. And he wanted more. He was a greedy man. And so he thought about how he could get more. And then one day he decided, what if I just kill the goose and cut open its belly? I'm sure it'll be full of golden eggs, and then I'll be rich very quick. And so he did that. He killed a goose. But what he found wasn't a pile of golden eggs. It was just a bloody goose, dead. And dead geese don't lay eggs, certainly not golden ones. So I suspect you've probably heard this story before. Raise your hands if you have. Interesting, because certainly fewer than I was expecting. If you haven't heard this story before, it's actually an ancient Greek fable, one of Aesop's fables. It's about not being satisfied with what you have and doing anything you can to get more, even to the point that you lose everything. The first time I heard it, I was a little boy. But I think now, as an adult, this story is much more relevant. In the documentary Green Gold, documentary maker and ecologist John DeLue, who you might know from the last TEDx, says that the source of wealth are functioning ecosystems. And the products and services that come from this source are the derivatives. They are what we consider wealth. And he argues that it's impossible for the derivatives to be more valuable than the source. So in other words, the functioning ecosystems on the earth are the goose. And the products and services, the derivatives, are the golden eggs. That's what we value in our economy. And as we've been mining and farming and spewing greenhouse gases out in the atmosphere, to try to get more from the earth, we've slowly been killing our goose. Out of greed, basically. But at some point, we won't have any more golden eggs. We'll just have a dead earth. And that's essentially the trajectory that we're on. However, according to the IPCC, you might be aware of this, we have roughly 10 more years to get serious about preventing the worst from happening. And luckily there are many organizations and governments and groups of people that are working to reduce greenhouse gas emissions through many different methods. But basically that's like stopping the knife from stabbing the goose, which is important. But it has been stabbed for many decades and it's dying out, it's bleeding at this point. So we need to take measures so the goose can heal before it's really too late. And we know we can restore degraded landscapes. And we know we can transition to regenerative forms of agriculture. And there are also many organizations already working on this. The United Nations has declared that next year we'll see the beginning of the decade of ecosystem restoration that aims to massively scale up restoration of damaged ecosystems. And it has the potential to remove many gigatons of greenhouse gases from the atmosphere, as well as to protect and increase biodiversity and improve livelihood standards on a vast scale. Well, that's really great. Super cool. I guess I'll just go home and stay in bed and watch Netflix or something. Meanwhile, this hero saved the day. Or is there something I can do? Is there something you can do? This is something we can all do that goes beyond, putting solar panels on our roofs, changing our diets, flying less or not at all. Is there a role for everyday people in ecosystem restoration? Like I said, we have the technical solutions. But when I say we, when most people say we in this context, it really refers to only a handful of specialized experts. In general, most people don't know how to restore ecosystems. Most people aren't even aware that it's possible. They don't even know what an ecosystem is often. And they don't really see a role for themselves in this. And I think this has a lot to do with our fundamental relationship to the environment. I think that if we want to learn how to restore ecosystems, if we want to really take this seriously, we need to change this relationship first. Now, I have an unfortunate tendency to be a bit cynical and negative. I certainly was very cynical 10 years ago. Quite frankly, I was depressed. I didn't really think I could make any change. I thought, quite frankly, I didn't matter. I didn't think there was anything I could do. And the way that this has a lot to do with the way that I related to myself and to other people and to my environment, everything around me. My world was very narrow-minded, very negative and dark. And this stopped me from living a life the way I actually wanted to live it. But then I got help. I got help from many people. And I managed to change my way of thinking. I managed to change my habits, at least for certain periods of time, and gradually I changed my life. And it was enough to come here to Wageningen to study and to graduate. Yay. So I know it's possible for people to change, but you need help. And I think maybe we also need a new story. Instead of this man slaughtering this goose out of greed, what if there was somebody else who came across this man and he found him and his goose and they stopped the slaughter from happening because they talked to the man and got him to understand that he was suffering from his own greed. And they helped the man to understand that there was much more value to him as well, to caring for the goose and to cherish whatever the goose gave, to appreciate everything that it provided him, and to appreciate what there is in general, rather than obsessing over what there isn't. And together they cared for the goose out of love and compassion. And as they did that, the health of the goose gradually began to improve. Isn't that a much nicer story? Raise your hands if you think that was a nicer story. Much better. Nice. And I think this is also a better trajectory for us to be on, And of course, we still need to learn how to do this. And that's why I want to point out that there are some initiatives that are working on this. There's a lot of things in development. They're working to raise awareness. They're working to teach people, to train people how to restore ecosystems. Initiatives like the ecosystem restoration camps, as presented by John Liu. There's Extinction Rebellion, who are also focusing on raising awareness of regenerative culture. There's Common Land, a Dutch initiative, and there are people like Joanna Macy and Daniel Christian Wall, as well as John Liu, as I mentioned. And many, many, many more. They're all helping people to discover a new way to live, to write a new story that's not so destructive. And it's not just sustainable either. Sustainability isn't going to get us very far. We need to go beyond sustainability. It's about regeneration. It's about creating a regenerative culture. And so myself For the past year and a half, I've been working with some others to develop the Renew Foundation to help provide opportunities for people to learn how to restore damaged ecosystems and then to connect them to projects that actually do this work. So it's about very concrete measures to get the job done. But to do it in a way that is fun and in a way that connects people to the land, connects people to knowledge and know-how, and it connects people to each other. Because ultimately we have to do it together so that we can renew ourselves and our world. I don't think we have to live passive lives while big institutions do all the work. We live on their whim. We can give ourselves a new role, not as greedy hoarders of golden eggs, but as caretakers of the goose that nourishes us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then maybe get the goose to produce 2 eggs.
Maybe.
Any remarks? No? Yes?
Thank you for this presentation. Enjoyed the consistent metaphor there with the golden goose. I was wondering if maybe you could, I'm not sure if you have a concrete example of